I recently did a review on Zenless Zone Zero, and something I didn't mention in that video was how similar it was to another game that exists. The reason being, I figured it'd be better as a standalone video. I didn't want to omit any details to fit it all into that video. When it comes to Zenless Zone Zero, most people say stuff like, oh look, it's a combination of Persona and Splatoon. I see why they say that, and I don't necessarily disagree. I'm sure the developers were looking at the aesthetics of popular games and franchises and intentionally implemented many of those games' notable and interesting features and designs. But the game that draws a parallel to Zenless the most is Astral Chain, a Nintendo Switch exclusive from 2019 by Platinum Games. So that's the same studio that made Nier Automata. Not to mention the people working on it also worked on other games like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, and Okami, just to name a few. It's actually amazing how similar Zenless and Astral Chain are in style and themes. Both have futuristic post-apocalyptic settings. In both cases, the remnants of the world are being threatened to be swallowed up by dimensional pockets inhabited by strange creatures. The main protagonists are twins in both games. There's police everywhere, that seems to be a theme. Similar immersive everyday life stuff, and the most telling similarity, Officer Mew Mew and Lappy. But first, let's look at the twins. That's a very big chunk of Astral Chain that was implemented into Zenless Zone Zero. First of all, they look vaguely similar, though they obviously have different art styles there. Secondly, you can choose either twin without affecting the story. The one you didn't choose ends up being in the shadow of the selected protagonist. This dynamic seems to be exaggerated in Zenless in some specific ways. The selected twin is the one who connects to HDD, the other doesn't, and is also on the receiving end of fairy sarcasm. There's more story similarities, but I don't really want to spoil anything. And actually that goes for me as well. I did finish Astral Chain years ago, but I'm still actively playing Zenless right now. And I'm not that far into it, so I don't want to dig up anything, when doing research and then stumble upon spoiler territory. There's also some interesting contrast between how both games handle the twins. For example, in Zenless, the twins are outlaws who still try to do good, while in Astral Chain, they're actually cops. When it comes to how involved they are, the Astral Chain pair are in the midst of battle, while the Zenless twins do the exact opposite. Now, the settings have some very interesting similarities. The whole post-apocalyptic thing is pretty obvious, though Zenless has lots of 80s and 90s stuff going on, plus a skater aesthetic. Astral Chain is more in the cyberpunk, Blade Runner sort of realm. It's way more classic sci-fi in that regard. Other similarities are those dimensional pockets, though Astral Chain is more abstract looking while Zenless goes with a distorted version of their world. Arguably, that can be more interesting because you have more variation in what the areas look like because they resemble pre-corrupted areas, whereas in Astral Chain it's all basically the same stuff that doesn't look like anything like the human world or whatever. Also, these crystal things exist in both games, I've noticed. One thing that's noticeably different is that in Zenless, humans do traverse the hollows frequently, while in Astral Chain, that's not really a thing. In terms of location, Harmony Square and Lumina Square are probably the most similar. Harmony Square is more like Times Square, while Lumina Square is more like Shibuya Crossing. Notice how both have holographic barrier things for cars and pedestrian crossings. Both games also feature this sort of humorous tech approach. Like in Zenless, you have these Bang Boos things that are weird and funny little tech creatures that do, strange things and have different personalities. They remind me of Astral Chain's vending machines, except, they don't have as much variety when it comes to personality. But, they do have these kind of entertaining tech with a personality sort of thing going on there. They also integrate very differently in the respective games in terms of their purpose in the world. So, yeah, one's more like an assistant robot, whereas the other one's more like giving an existing appliance a personality. And of course, I have to mention Officer Mew Mew and Lappy. Both are mascots of their respective games' police force. Surely Lappy was the inspiration for Officer Mew Mew. Yeah, they switched the species from dog to cat, but the whole feel of the character is still intact, including them taking their job as mascots way too seriously. The moment Officer Mew Mew appeared, I knew they had to have looked at Astral Chain. It's basically proof. It couldn't have been a coincidence, right? So yeah, that's just what I wanted to say. To be perfectly honest, I'm always happy for any excuse to talk about Astral Chain again. It seems like it's a game that doesn't come up too often despite being quite excellent in many ways. I'm just hoping to bring some recognition to it, and when I started Zenless and I noticed all the parallels between the games, I knew it was a perfect opportunity to talk about it a bit. Anyway, I hope that was fun. If you have any comments regarding the similarities between ZZZ and Astral Chain, then please comment below. Perhaps do a little spoiler warning if it's story related though. And also, it's basically been years since I regularly mentioned my Patreon page, so might as well bring it up now every now and then, I suppose. So please check it out if you're interested in supporting the channel in addition to watching the videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.